Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to today's Q&A. My name is Susanna Briscoe-Alba. I am the lead career strategist at Dunamis Coaching and Consulting Services. And today I am going to be answering your questions in real time. So, for those of you who are new to this, but not true. Well, if you are new to this, welcome. My name is Susanna Briscoe-Alba. I am the lead career strategist at Dunamis Coaching and Consulting Services, where we teach women how to land six-figure roles through leadership development and career strategy. And on Mondays we go live. Mondays we go live to answer your questions. So if you are joining me for the first time, welcome. If you are not joining me for the first time, hey friend, we are live on YouTube, on LinkedIn, and we are live on Instagram. Hey Insta fam bam, what's going on? Hello. Happy Monday. So today I'm going to be answering your questions in real time. So what we are going to do is that I'm going to start off with some of the questions that were submitted ahead of time, and then I'm going to answer your questions in real time. So for my Instagram fam bam, if we get cut off, know that you can find me on YouTube and you can find me on LinkedIn. And for those of you who are watching me on LinkedIn and YouTube, if you have a question, just put it in the comments and we will get into subject matter material. So I'm going to bring up the questions that I got because some of the questions that I got were regarding getting interviews, and some of y'all seem to be having a hard time securing interviews or going on interviews and not entirely sure what to say, how to say it. And I want to make sure that I can serve you well. So I'm just going to pull up the questions that I got so that we can get started. It is incredibly windy where I am here in New York. So in New York, it is like the wind is howling. So if you hear a lot of loudness in the background, I promise you it's not me. The wind is doing the most in the background. So listen, if you could do me a favor and let me know where you are watching from, if this is your first time catching a live with me, I want you to drop a 1 in the chat and let me know where you are watching from. And if this is not your first time, if you've been rocking with me for some time, put a 2 in the chat and let me know where you are joining from. As I bring up the questions that were submitted before. I'm not sure why they're not pulling up, but as I bring up the questions, tell me where you are joining me from. Okay. Let me know what's going on. And we are going to get into it. And then for those of you who are watching me on LinkedIn and on YouTube, if you have a question, just drop it in the comments and we will get to it to answer your questions. Okay. So I'm going to get to the questions that you guys submitted. And my hope is to be able to provide as much context as possible. If you are watching me on Instagram and you have a question, I will go off of the questions that are in the question bubble. Okay. So for my tools, hey friends. Welcome. For the ones, can you do me a favor? If you drop the 2 in the chat, letting me know that you have been rocking with me for some time, can you drop a welcome message for those who are joining us for the first time? Let them know that they are welcomed here. Okay, you are welcomed here. So I see people from Tanzania. I see India is in the house, Atlanta, ATL, Newport News, Virginia, South Africa, Kissimmee, Florida, California. Hey, Cali. Ghana is in the building. Nigeria, India, Virginia. Listen, it never gets old to me to see where you guys are joining me from. So this is so dang exciting. Mexico is in the house, South Africa, Dallas, Texas, Orlando. Hey. So yeah, I'm excited to connect with y'all. Now, listen, we got a lot of questions. So I'm going to try to move quick. If you caught the live on, I believe it was on Friday, where I talked about negotiations, I broke down negotiations from the very beginning to what you should be saying and doing. Instagram cut me off. So you cannot see that live on Instagram, but it is uploaded to YouTube. And yeah, it's uploaded on YouTube. So if you want to if you have questions surrounding what to do when it comes to negotiations, what to say, how to prepare, that is going to be the live to catch. Hey, República Dominicana is in the house. DR. DR. That's where my family hails from. So, bienvenidos. I am so excited that y'all are here. Okay, let's get into question number one. The first question that I got says, hey sis, I'm a life insurance claims manager and I've been at my company 20 years this July. Wow, congratulations. Unfortunately, I feel like I've hit a glass ceiling. My boss has basically told me that my salary is at max and there isn't any additional management openings to pivot into. Therefore, I believe it's time to move on. I haven't updated my resume or been on an interview in years. I don't know where to begin. Help. Okay. So this individual has been with their employer for 20 years and they're trying to figure out what to do in terms of pivoting. So a couple things that I would pay attention to, especially if you are in the world of insurance, especially in life insurance claims, I would look at where within insurance you want to go from here on out. See what types of transferable skills that you have. When it comes to interviewing and updating resumes, there's tons of information on my page on how you can update your resume and how you can how you can leverage an interview. I'm getting tongue-tied. How you can leverage an interview. So there's a couple things that I would say if you haven't been in an interview in a long time. Yes, things have changed quite a bit. So there's a couple things that I'm going to recommend that you pay attention to and that you start to do. So for those of you who are going on an interview or you are trying to land an interview, before you land an interview and before you go into an interview, you need to take inventory of your career story. I'm going to say that one more time. Take inventory of your career story, because what we as hiring managers are going to do, we are going to ask you questions that are going to be more behavioral and perhaps even situational questions. And so if you don't have a story that can answer some of those questions, you're going to find yourself struggling, especially if you haven't been in an interview in a long time. So when I'm telling you to make sure that you have, take inventory of your career story, 9 times out of 10, questions that we're going to ask during the interview from my hiring management perspective, questions that we're going to ask will likely be around how do you handle conflict? How do you handle working with a team? Can you tell me about a time where you took on a project and failed? What are some of the things that you've learned in your career in terms of you being able to articulate your value that you think would be valuable for this conversation? So those are just kind of points that you should be paying attention to in terms of what questions could they possibly be asking me. And then in order to answer those questions, I'm going to encourage you to pay attention to either the STAR method, STAR, right? Situation, task, action steps, and results. Situation, tasks, action steps, and results. And then the PAR method is the other option that you have. Problem, action step, results. The reason that I'm giving you 2 different methods is because if you are a chatty Cathy and you want to be able to articulate your value in a timely fashion without feeling like you're rambling, then the PAR method is going to be a good fit for you. Tell me, what was the problem? What action steps did you take? And what was the result? Now, if you feel like your answers need a little bit more context and you really want to be able to build rapport, you can also leverage the STAR method, which is one that I recommend. What was the situation? That's the context. What was the task that you were responsible for? What action steps did you take? And then what was the result? If you notice, both frameworks are ending with results. Because the thing is that when we get candidates in front of us, they're very quick to tell me about the problem. They're very quick to tell me about the issues that they had. Sometimes they're too forthcoming with information that is not relevant to what I'm interviewing for, and they get caught up in the drama. but they don't tell me what action steps they took, nor what solutions did they bring. And I can tell you from my hiring management perspective, I'm looking for a solution driven individual and not just one who is very good at telling me what the problems are. Because I can tell you as a manager, 9 times out of 10, I'm already dealing with problems. Like I know there's an issue. So I'm looking for someone who I can bring onto my team that is going to be a good fit and is going to be solution oriented. Okay. So I want you to think through how you're going to respond. The other reason that I give you a framework, or I gave you two, the STAR method and the PAR method, the reason that I give you those two frameworks is because if you are nervous, how many of you would say that when you go to an interview, you get nervous? If you get nervous during an interview, I want you to drop a 3 in the chat. If you get nervous during an interview, drop a 3 in the chat. Because I want you to see a couple of things before I continue kind of sharing why I'm telling you this. If you get nervous during an interview, drop a 3 in the chat. Okay. Okay, so most of you do. Here's what I want you to understand. Getting nervous during an interview is absolutely normal. It is absolutely normal. What I don't want you to do is to fumble your words during an interview. Because one of the questions that likely you will get asked in some way, shape, or form, okay, is going to be, can you tell me about a time that you had to deal with a high pressure situation and how did you handle it? Can you tell me about a time where you had to deal with a high pressure situation and how did you handle it? I don't know where this is coming from, y'all. And the reason that we ask that question is because in the middle of an interview is a high pressured situation. And if you're telling me, if your response to that question is going to be, oh, I handle high pressure situations well, I don't stress about anything. As I am observing you from the other side of the table, if you're nervous during the interview, you will likely be nervous during a high pressure situation. Okay. So it could very well be that we are also assessing how you handle this type of high pressure situation. And so the reason that I give you a framework is because I want you to be able to at least have responses that are clear, concise, and will help take the pressure off. So like that, you're not shaking or trying to fumble over your words when you are interviewing, because a lot of people get nervous. How many of you saw those 3s in the chat, right? Many of you get nervous during an interview. So when you have a framework and you have your career story outlined so that you can answer based off of that framework, that helps to take the pressure off. The other reason that I give you a framework is because what you will also identify is that you could likely go on an interview and they may not ask you the same questions that I'm telling you to prepare for. But if you have a framework, you know how to answer the questions that are getting sent at you or getting shared during an interview, because now as you are listening to the question, you can quickly identify what was the situation, what task, what were my action steps, and what was the result. Okay. And that helps you to not feel like such a robot. One of the things that I love during an interview is when I can get into conversation with someone, but the conversation is still very guided, right? So it doesn't feel like you ask a question, you give me a response. I ask a question, you give me a response. It doesn't feel so tense. The idea is for us to be able to have conversations. Congratulations. I'm so glad. Congratulations. All right. So somebody in the comments said, man, they said, you have any questions for us? Hold on, it's moving fast. Do you have any questions for us? And I hit them with what motivates you the most about this job and got hired on the spot. Congratulations. That's another thing. You need to make sure that you have questions that support conversation. especially in this market. The reason why I want you to have a conversation, y'all, over just focusing on an interview is because in this market there are a lot of qualified candidates, a lot of them. And so the more that you can have conversations that feel like conversations where you feel like you are in control and you feel like you want to be a part of it, that is a good sign. But if it feels so awkward and uncomfortable, the same energy that you're giving off is the same energy that we are receiving. So the more that you focus on the conversation, the easier that becomes for you. Okay. The idea is for you to have ownership. So I want you to type that in the chat: ownership. I want you to have ownership of your career story. I want you to have ownership over who gets the blessing of your time, talent, and attention. Because when you can see it from that perspective, it becomes so much bigger than just an interview. Not every organization under the sun is worthy of your time, talent, and attention. Not every organization under the sun is worthy of your time, your talent, and your attention. But you will not see that. You will not understand that until you have a conversation. Okay? So when you can come to the understanding that it is more about a conversation, you are interviewing them as much as they are interviewing you. And what we're not trying to do is waste time. We're not trying to do that. Okay? So make sure that you've taken ownership. Make sure that you have identified what are some career stories or career highlights that you want to be able to share during your interview. So like that, you don't feel like, I'm not sure. Okay. So I'm hoping that this can help you. All right. That was a long answer to the first question. Oh my gosh. This is why I struggle. Let's see. Okay, the next question is regarding resignation. Regarding resignations. And their question is, they're about to resign from their job that has been wonderful, but they feel like they owe their CFO to tell them first, but they are not a direct report to the CFO. Can I tell him before I tell my manager? My manager has not been very supportive, which is the reason for my resignation. So there's a couple things. When it comes to your resignation, again, going back to the topic of ownership, you decide who you want to tell and how. Okay. When it comes to your resignation, you decide who you want to tell and how. You can tell your direct supervisor by email, and if you feel like you have more of a rapport with the CFO, then you can feel as you can share that information with the CFO one-on-one. So for example, one of the things that I used to find really interesting with some of my staff was when I was in an office, because now my staff is completely virtual. But when my staff would find new opportunities, one of the things that was really interesting about it was that they would come and tell me that they had new opportunities before they told anyone else. And what's interesting is that sometimes some of my staff members would bypass their managers, and they would come directly to me to tell me. And I wasn't upset that they did that. I found it actually quite, what's the word? I was always astounded that they felt like they needed to come and tell me first. Because in many cases, I was a champion for my staff. So I would love to hear and celebrate their good news. However, being the manager that I was and being the leader that I was, once they shared that information with me, I would put the onus right back on them. Hey, listen, out of respect, you need to be able to tell your manager, or you need to be able to tell your director what is going on. Again, a lot of this depends on the culture that has been created in the organization that you work for. So my team and I, we really did enjoy when our team members found new opportunities, when they were growing, when they were thriving, because we knew at certain points we can't help them anymore. They've reached a certain cap with us, but I also don't want to keep them stagnant. So if they've found another opportunity, we are going to celebrate that. And I believe that when you celebrate people and you genuinely celebrate them, it's not like you are like you're being facetious in any way, but when you genuinely celebrate them, like it brings closure for the employee, but it also puts you in a place where like you're not holding on to anything, right? Like who wants to be holding on to bad, I don't know, bad karma or bad juju? Not that I believe in those things, but like I wanted my team to leave and feel empowered, not leave and feel like I'm never going to deal with this individual again. Because you never know. You never know how you may cross paths with someone that you worked with. So why not leave on good terms, is all I'm saying. So if you are at a place where you are resigning and like you feel you have more of a relationship with someone else, again, you have ownership over your career. You tell them however you see fit. The other thing that I want to address is exit interviews, because I get a lot of questions about exit interviews. Exit interviews are exactly that. You are interviewing or you are sharing information as you are leaving out. It is totally up to you how much information you want to share. But the idea behind an exit interview should not be for you to expect any change. The company is not required to change anything just because you had a exit interview. So if you're going into an exit interview with the guys that you're just going to unload on your manager, you're going to talk about everybody and their mama, and you're hoping that something is going to change, you will likely find yourself more frustrated when nothing happens. So if you get called for an exit interview, be honest, share the truth of what happened to you, but let that be your closure. Do not expect that they're going to be like, oh, we're going to look into that. Or, oh, yeah, we're going to address this person. Or, oh, yeah, we're going to change X, Y, and Z. Because, honey, you leaving. You are. And if you are leaving, why do you still care what is going on? So you know what I say to that? Say what you need to say, but then mind the business that pays you. Okay? Mind the business that pays you. Because they likely are not going to change. And especially if the organization is known for entertaining, supporting, or encouraging bad behavior. They're just not going to change anything. It's going to stay exactly the same. So say your piece, and after you've said your piece, you keep it moving. My recommendation is not to be rude or disrespectful or mean, because again, you never know how paths can cross later on. But do not go in there expecting that because you said something, they're all going to be like, oh my God, she was so right. Oh my goodness, we need to do it. Baby, it's a courtesy. Okay. All right. So let's get into the next question. First of all, was that helpful? Was that helpful for y'all, especially if you are in a point where you are pivoting or you're in a point of transition? I just wanted to make that really clear because I get a lot of those questions in my DMs. What do I do in that kind of case where I'm going in for an exit interview and they're like, should I just tell everybody off? And it's like, I don't really think that's smart, but not my circus, not my monkeys, you know? So that's kind of how I feel. All right, let me see. The next question that I got was and then I'll get to y'all's questions. The next question that I got said, "Hi Susanna, I have a question which I'm not sure if you have answered before. As a Black woman that is a manager, how do you handle or what do you say when your director, counterparts, and your team undermine you? I have found a team member that has become disrespectful because they feel they have one up on me. So what do I do?" Here's my response to that. If you are a woman in leadership, especially a woman of color, and you are managing a team that does not identify, look like, or support you, you're going to have to rely on documentation. I'm going to say that again. If you are a woman of color, especially if you are a Black woman, because they like us up until the point that we start to tell them about themselves and then they feel some type of way. If you are managing a team that does not look like you, that cannot identify with you, who has a hard time taking your leadership because of your melanin, you're going to have to start documenting more effectively and more efficiently. For those of you who are new to my space, one of the things that I encourage everyone to do is to have an evidence list where you are documenting the work that you are doing, who you are working with, what is the outcome, what projects do you have going on. And it is not because I want to be combative, and it is not because I want you to live in fear. But what I do want you to do is that I want you to be equipped. The whole premise behind why I'm hosting a conference for women, by women, of color, it is open to women from all shades. But the reason why that I operate in the space that I do, and the reason that I share my story with such boldness, is because I remember what it felt like to know that you were hired and you were excited to do good work, but only up until a certain threshold, or only up until a certain point, before others start to feel intimidated or say things about you that are not necessarily the truth. This is why I tell you, you need to take documentation more seriously, because the idea is for you to make sure that you can stand on what you are doing, not stand from a place of combativeness, but stand from a place of data. That's why, if you are not keeping an evidence list, today is a great day to start. Today is a great day to start. So what I would encourage you to do, my love, if that is who you are, I would encourage you to start taking notes. I would encourage you to start paying attention to how, like, what kind of information you are sharing. And for any woman, okay, I want you to consider these 3 questions, because we are emotional beings. Okay, that's just the way that we are wired, ladies. But there are 3 questions that I want you to consider when you are trying to operate in your best. Okay, the first question, for my note takers, I'm going to encourage you to take notes. The first question is, does it need to be said? That's the first question. Does it need to be said? Because what I find is sometimes we say things that don't need to be said. So I need you to check yourself real quick. Does it need to be said? The other thing is, does it need to be said by me? Does it need to be said by me? The first question is, does it need to be said? Secondly, does it need to be said by me? And I'm going to give you an example of what that means, of what that looks like. And then the third and final question is, in this environment, will my question bring resolution? In this environment, will my question bring about resolution? The first question was, does it need to be said? The second one was, does it need to be said by me? The third is in this environment, will my question bring about resolution? I'm gonna give you an example. A colleague of mine, again, when I was in the office, we walked into a meeting, and this colleague of mine, we were meeting with a couple department heads, and I was fairly new to my role, and I think I might have been the only melanated person in the room. And this colleague of mine, we walked into this meeting together. And I got the question that I got during the meeting was, why do we need two of you? And who put you in charge? So at first I was like, okay, well, I'm new to this role, so maybe they just don't know who I am. So let me give some context. So I gave some context. And then throughout the whole meeting, they purposely were calling me by my wrong title. And my colleague got so annoyed that she made it her point to say, I am the director and she is the person above me. I report into her. She stopped the meeting to be able to say, I am the director and she is the person that I report into. So please give her that respect. So this is why I ask you, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? And in this environment, will it bring resolution? It was in that moment that I knew that my colleague, she was ready to fight. But one of the things that we don't talk about enough, or I try to talk about quite a bit, is that if I would have responded in that moment, I would have just been labeled as the angry Black girl or the angry brown girl. But my colleague, who I love to the moon and back, but she's not melanated. She saw it already. She was like, I've had enough of this. This is who I am. This is who she is. And she needs your respect. Now, did I address that privately? Absolutely. Because you're not going to play with me. But in that type of environment, it wasn't conducive to what we were trying to do. Is this helping anybody? For those of you asking if the life will be saved, it will. So I want you to evaluate those questions. In many cases, and because of the way that I operated and in my transparency, 9 times out of 10, it did not need to be said by me. It did not need to be said because my team was like, oh no, we got this one. And thirdly, the environment in which I was in was not going to bring about resolution. The reason that I was in this meeting was to bring a solution to an issue, not to have to defend my position. And at the end of the day, at the level at which I was at, I was the decision maker. So whether you like me or not, I'm still the decision maker. So this is why I want you to operate in your power. And some team members, y'all, it took me a long time to build my dream team. This is why I teach the way that I do, because I didn't wait until I got into leadership to start building my team. The moment that an opportunity opened for me, I knew exactly who I was bringing with me. So you have to be able to identify, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? And in this environment, is it conducive to what we're trying to do? If the answers to those questions are no, then you leave it at that. If the answer to those questions are yes, then you need to operate from a place of data. You need to operate from a place of data. And you need to operate from a place of confidence. So at the conference, this is why we're teaching you these kinds of things. One of your speakers at the conference handles a $7 billion budget. She's the only woman in her department. And she is a woman, a project manager, managing that type of budget in a male-dominated industry. Can you imagine the things that my good sis deals with? Oh, but when it comes to her, she has her data. She knows how to articulate her value, and she knows which battles are meant for her to fight and which battles are not worth her time. Equipped is what I want you to be. Equipped. So at the Scale to Six conference on June 25th and June 26th, baby, If you think these lives are going to be good, imagine 2 days of getting taught. Yep, construction. Y'all are smart. Yes, she is in construction. So can you imagine those 2 days? I'm like, I'm so excited. If you've not registered for the conference, I don't know what you're waiting for. Like, I want to meet y'all. I want you to experience that, but not more importantly than just meeting y'all, more importantly than experiencing you, I want you to be equipped. And the reason that we're doing it in June is because a lot can happen over the next 6 months. So after we meet in June, from July to December, your life could look real different in how you move, how you talk, how you negotiate, who you build with, who you like. Listen, I'm just trying to tell you. So the conference is taking place June 25th and June 26th. It's going to be in Poughkeepsie, New York. If you want to join us, you can click the link in my bio. For those of you who are on Instagram, I'm telling you, you want to be there. Karina, yes, baby, I saw your registration. I can't wait. I can't wait. Here's another thing that I want you to be aware of. If you are looking for, like, how do I tell my manager that I want to go to this conference? We have a letter that you can give to your employer. You, of course, will need to finesse it to make sure that it sounds like you and it doesn't sound like me. But you can give that to your employer if you think you need support to be able to come to the conference. Prices for the conference will go up April 1st. So right now is early bird registration, and now is the time for you to get in. But anyway, getting back to your questions, I want to make sure that I answer that for you. But the last point, if you catch nothing else from the live today, the 3 questions that I want you to think through, especially when you're dealing with difficult situations. Does it need to be said? Does it need to be said by me? And in this environment, will it bring a solution? If the response to that is no, then you figure out another strategy. But what we're not going to do is give people the opportunity to move us out of our place or call us out of our name. Because I don't know about y'all, but the moment that I was speaking very passionate about something, I was immediately aggressive, difficult to work with, rough around the edges. But the things that I was passionate about that needed change, I had to be able to be vocal about those things. And the things that were not, that I didn't need to worry about, because ultimately I knew that I was the decision maker. Okay, I'm gonna let you feel the way that you feel. But at the end of the day, this is what we're doing and this is how we're operating. And so, yeah, that was a spicy one. All right, next question is, how do you ask for religious accommodations during the interview? Okay, so if you are looking for a religious accommodation, without having too much context, I would save those types of questions for when you have had an offer. Okay? When you have had an offer. The point where you have the most power, ladies, is at the point of offer. Whenever it comes to negotiating, the place that you have the most power is at the point of offer. So if you have a religious accommodation, that is a part that I would encourage you to think through. How can you negotiate that as a part of your total compensation? Listen, if you have not seen that live that I did on negotiation, find me on YouTube so that you can watch it, because then you can identify where does this religious accommodation fall and how do I articulate that, because that is definitely something that you can ask for. I wouldn't start the interview with that, because at the start of an interview, I'm not even sure if you're the right candidate. I called you because I think that you're qualified, but it is during the interview and having a conversation where I can see the value that you bring that I would decide whether or not you would be a good fit. Okay, so I hope that answered your question. Next question is, should you negotiate salary if you're applying for an entry-level position with less than 1 year? Yes. Yes. Absolutely. I'm always going to tell you to negotiate. Always. Next question is, what should I say when asked why I left my previous role? So when you are, this is a very emotional question for us. When it comes to getting that question, why did you leave your previous role? Please do not go into the drama. You don't have to say that you got fired. You like none of that information becomes relevant. Okay. I was speaking with a woman who had been at her organization for about 15 years, and she was looking to leave her organization. And that was one of the questions that she was worried about. Up until the point where she and I were having this conversation, she had had a great time at her organization. But unfortunately, she got stuck with a very difficult and toxic manager, and she figured it was time to go. So when you are at the place that you are asking, hey, why are you looking to leave your current role? Talk about why this role at this organization is a good time for you at this point. Okay. So I would respond with, I enjoyed my time at my organization, but given what I see with this job and this job description, I think that this would be a better fit of my skills, of my talent. And I believe in the mission and the vision of the organization. Do not say what I just said word for word if you don't mean it. I'm going to say that again. Do not say what I said just word for word if you don't mean it. Because they will ask you, so what do you think is the most important part of the mission and vision of the organization? And if you don't know, guess what happens? And if the interviewer is anything like Susanna Briscoe-Alba and you just lied about that, I'm gonna let that one marinate. But what the reason why I'm saying that is because we don't need to know about the drama. Okay. So the reason that I'm looking for a new opportunity is because I'm looking to be challenged. I'm looking to explore new ideas. Like those are the kinds of ways that I would answer that question. So if you got let go, if your company was in the middle of restructuring and you don't really feel like you want to share that information, just speak to what about this new role attracted you and answer based off of that. Okay? So I hope that answered your question, Miss Goddess. Um Okay, so the HR recruiter pressed 3 times why I left my toxic job before getting a new job. Red flag. I would, because like if you answered the question the way that I just answered, like what else do you want to know? Also, like why are you here for tea? Make it make sense. Either you are here to hire people or find the best fit candidate, or you just want drama. Like, I ain't got time for that. Get somebody else to do it. Um, okay, so this next question says, I'm ready to make the transition from supervisor to manager. I had a few interviews that went well, but when it is time to make a decision, I'm overlooked for an internal candidate. What advice do you have for me to help me be the one that gets the job? So, a couple questions here. When you are looking to make this transition, are you applying for a managerial role or a leadership role? Let's say that a leadership role internally, or are you applying for a leadership role outside of your organization? The reason that I ask that is because if you are applying for a internal role and they keep passing you up, there may be something to be said about how you are building connections and building rapport. Or the other aspect too is how you are sharing your story. Okay. So if you've been at an organization or you've been interviewed and they keep passing you up for an internal candidate, couple things to consider, especially in this market. In this market, they're likely going to go with an internal candidate because it's cheaper. So you need to pay attention to that. An internal candidate can expect to get an increase of anywhere between 3 to 5% as per industry. Okay. An external candidate likely is going to expect an increase between 10 to 15%. So you just got to know the numbers. The second thing is, if you are interviewing for these types of roles and you get passed up often, I would say that there's an issue between your storytelling and your resume. meaning that the person that I am meeting on on the interview does not match the resume that was before me. So if you find that that is happening often, it's likely that you need to be able to articulate your story a little bit better to make them want to hire you. Oh, question here is I had a fellow on conversation with an HR recruiter where she asked about salary and total compensation. I gave her a salary range after I felt like I owed her a follow up regarding total compensation and sent her an email of what I would like if given the opportunity. Was that appropriate? So if this was an initial conversation, I would have told you just leave it with the range. They don't, you can tell them all the things that you want, but unless they are making an offer, they're probably not even thinking that far down. So if it was just an initial conversation, like, hey, can you tell me what your salary requirements are? Okay, well, my salary requirements are between this range and this range. That would have sufficed. But especially if it's preliminary. But at the point of offer is where you're like, okay, my salary range is between this and this, and these are some of the pieces of the total compensation that I'm looking to see. That's the way I would have handled it. Um, uh, Question is here, the job now changed for 3 days for a 3-day work week. I'm looking for a 5-day work week in a leadership role. How to say this? Baby, I'm not sure I understand your question. So is it that you are employed at a place where it's 3 days a week and you want 5 days a week? Um, I don't know if she's still on, but I would just let them know that. That's the schedule that you're looking for. And the way that I would pose that question is, can you tell me what the day-to-day here looks like? What's the usual schedule for someone in this role? Next question is, do you do one-on-ones? I do, yes. So if you're interested in doing a one-on-one with me, those are called resume and career strategy sessions. They're about a half hour. And if that's something that you're interested in, you definitely can send me a DM and we can schedule a one-on-one. The month of March is booked and the month of April will be opening soon. So if you're interested in having me just kind of help you look over your resume. Very clear distinction here. I'm looking over your resume. I'm not redoing or reworking your resume. We're talking strategy. So if that's what you're looking for, absolutely. If you're looking for one-on-one coaching, I also do that as well. So just send me a DM and then we can have more conversation surrounding that. Question here is, should I follow up after submission of a resume for a position, or does that seem desperate? It depends, who are you following up with? If you are applying cold and you are like, let's say you went to Indeed, you went to LinkedIn, one of the job boards, and you are applying cold, I would encourage you to try to find out who the hiring manager is, and then you could reach out to that hiring manager and have them, like, send them your resume. You can let them know, yo, I don't know where this comes from, so I'm sorry to my YouTube family who's watching. But if you are applying cold, I would encourage you to find who it is that you're interviewing with or who the hiring manager is, and just let them know, hey, I applied to this position. Make it a disruptive cover letter, which is what I encourage my clients to do. Disruptive meaning that you are speaking very specific to whatever, like to the role, and then closing with a PS. But let them know that you applied to this role, and to make it a little bit easier, you've attached your resume. I don't think that there's any harm in that. Question is, I have an interview at 2 p.m. This was for a referral. The one that referred me says to be prepared to provide a lot of examples, as one of the interviewers is intense, and ask a lot of follow-up questions. They are members of the team. Any advice? So if you are going on whenever you're going to be doing an interview with a panel, I would look up the panel. Now, y'all, listen. I know y'all don't interview the same way that I do, but I would look up, if you know who the interviewer is, in this case, the one who is intense, um, or if you can get a sense of who is on the panel. I look them up ahead of time. I think through what stories I would like to share, and then I look at what commonalities perhaps they have with me or I have with them, so that when I am in the point of conversation, that becomes data that I can bring up. I also mirror a lot, which is something that I teach my clients. I mirror a lot based off of what I am seeing in the room. So like that, it's not it's not weird or catches them off guard. So mirroring definitely will help you, especially if you know you have an intense interviewer. Do your research on who they are and mirror that same type of intensity. For those of you who are wondering what mirroring looks like, so when like the interviews that I've held or the interviews that I've gone to, when an interviewer leans in to ask me a question, in my response, I lean in to meet them. If the interviewer has glasses, 9 times out of 10, that becomes a point of conversation because of my glasses. So I will mirror based off of that. If the interviewer leans back during the conversation, I will ask questions. This is why the data of who you're going to be meeting with becomes so important, because if they lean back, to me, their body language is telling me that they're withdrawing. So it's at that point that I look at my notes and say, okay, this person and I have commonalities here. So I'm purposeful to mention those commonalities to get them to re-engage. I'm giving y'all tea. I'm telling you, you need, like, y'all, I wish I had more time, but these are the kinds of strategies that I teach. I'm going to be teaching at the conference, because you need to be able to know what that is. I also pay attention to tonality. So when I am ending my conversations, very seldom do I end with a question. I end with a firm stop. So in my conversations, when I am speaking, I'll say I'm the best at this, and this because of, and I back it up with data. Instead of, well, I'm really good with connecting with a team. And so, yeah, as we've been through that, we've seen a lot of growth, right? So you see how my tone ended there up. When you end with a tone up like that, it kind of signifies to the other individual psychologically that you're not very confident in what you're saying. But when you end the conversation and pay attention to tonality and you end it firmly, it displays confidence. If that was new to you, I want you to drop new in the chat, because these are the type of things that I wish more people knew. So if that was new for you, I want you to drop new in the chat. Because those are the kinds of tactics. This is why I tell you to practice during your, practice your responses, leverage AI so you can get an idea of what possible questions you will get, and practice what your responses will be. Because if your responses are always ending on a high pitch, it is likely that it's going to feel like you're not very confident in what you're saying. But if you can end with a confident end pitch and end on a lower tonality, that displays confidence. The reason that I lean in, and 9 times out of 10, I'll put my hands under my chin, is because I'm anchoring myself to be confident in what I'm saying. If I start to, if during an interview I start to lean back and I cross my arms, that means that I am no longer engaged. So as an interviewee, I need to pay attention to those types of things. So like that, the information that I am sharing will either re-engage the person that I'm speaking with, or it will pull them away. Okay. So that was a really long question, answer, Diamond, but I hope that helped you. I hope it helped everybody, because I don't think too many people know about what it looks like to mirror, what it looks like to end in a confident tone, how to anchor yourself. Like, those are things that type of body language. That's what I mean by mirroring. This here, good, good. I'm glad. I'm glad that it's helping. Okay, I have to be very mindful because we are approaching the hour, and Instagram likes to tell me you're not talking anymore, and it'll cut off the live. So if you get cut off, know that you can find me on LinkedIn and on YouTube, in case Instagram goes haywire. Okay, last question for today. This one says, not a question, but I used the it's a you problem on an email. The manager didn't even email me. The manager didn't even email me back. She liked it. So to give a little bit more context to this comment, so if you've seen my Instagram page, I did a couple reels on how do you professionally say, um, and I'm glad that you used it. I'm glad that you used it and that it worked, my love. The whole reason behind that is because I remember a season where I did not know how to respond to certain things. I didn't know how to engage in that type of conversation. I'm the baby out of my family, and my family are immigrants. So I had to learn the hard way. And so I started to kind of take notes about, okay, if somebody is dealing with this, how do I respond? And that's now how I would respond, especially now as a CEO and managing a team. There are ways that I can speak to you, like if we were in the Bronx, in my hometown, and I probably would make you feel really uncomfortable because that side of me, whoo, baby, I get nervous with that side of me. But there's the other aspect, which I'll share this with you guys, and it's another reason why I'm hosting this women's conference. I remember very distinctly my parents being very hypersensitive to what we looked like when we went out. My parents were not a fan of us going out in sweatpants or in sweaters like hoodies, and not looking very well put together. My daddy is this color, okay, and my mama is my complexion. And they there were instances where, just to do basic errands, I'm going to try to say this without getting emotional, but there were instances where, to do basic errands, they would be judged even before they opened their mouth. And so when we would go out in sweatshirts or sweatpants and didn't look put together, my parents were very concerned that we would not be taken seriously. And a lot of the way that I teach and a lot of the things that I share with y'all is because I remember how brilliant they still are, how brilliant they were then, and how brilliant my parents are now. My father is a walking encyclopedia, but because many would see his face first or see his demeanor first, they would make judgments on who he was. And my parents did the best that they could with what they got. And so their biggest thing was, make sure that you have a good education, make sure that you can articulate yourself well, and make sure that you know that you are worthy of respect, and that respect is earned, it's not given. And so the reason that I teach the way that I do, the reason that I show up consistently the way that I do, is because I never want any of my sisters, whether you follow me on Instagram, you are subscribed to my YouTube channel, you connect with me on LinkedIn, I never ever want you to feel like you're not worthy of being respected, of being listened to. And the reason, again, that this comes out so strongly in my material is because I remember my daddy and my mom being followed in the supermarket. They were just doing grocery shopping. And we would go grocery shopping on Sundays. My father and my mom were pastors for a really long time. So they were already dressed up to the nines. And we found that on the days where they were dressed up to the nines, there were very little questions. But on the days that they just wanted to be themselves, they were followed. So when you hear me teaching about career development, when you hear me teaching you how to articulate yourself, when you hear me sharing from a perspective of a woman of color in the workplace, that is where it all comes from. And the purpose behind creating an environment like the conference is I want to create a place where you feel safe to be seen and to be vulnerable, but where you walk out in your power, equipped to change your life. So if you ever were wondering, Susanna, why do you do this? Why are you putting on this women's conference? It's because I never want anyone to feel that way again. Woo! I didn't think I would be going there today, but I wanted to just kind of give a little bit more context because some of y'all don't know me from a can of paint. And why would you listen to this random individual on the internet? Like, I get it. I absolutely do. And there's a lot of weirdos on these internet streets. So I totally understand, but I wanted just to give you a little bit more context, a little bit more about who I am, what I do, and where it comes from. And lastly, before we wrap, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for lending me your attention. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to teach in this way. Thank you for this incredible community. It blows my mind that we have hit 500,000 on Instagram. Like, what? I never in a million years did I think that we would get to this place. So thank you for giving me your time. Thank you for rocking with your girl. Thank you for paying attention. Thank you for your questions, because from your questions is how we were able to teach and equip each other. So I love y'all. I hope you have the most amazing rest of your Monday. And for those of you who are wondering, this live will be saved. I will put it on Instagram and I will put it on YouTube and LinkedIn. If this helped you today, would you consider sharing it with someone else who needs it? Okay. Remember, I shared on Friday that information without implementation leads to stagnation. Information without implementation leads to stagnation. So don't keep this information just in your head. Implement what you have learned so that you can continue to thrive. Okay. I love y'all. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye, everybody.